Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, but I fought so hard and blinked several times to keep them back at least. I would ensure I didn't cry in front of Brinny. That was what she had always wanted to see, and I wasn't going to give her that privilege. I think it's time for a divorce, Selena. We were never mates. We never had that kind of connection. What use is a marriage that cannot bear anything out of it? His expression was cold, and his eyes held no warmth at all. Anything? Really, Lucian? I asked, struggling to keep myself from breaking down even though my voice was already forsaking me. Like I said, Selena, there was no connection between us. How was I supposed to touch a woman that I wasn't attracted to? You always paid too much attention to the pack rather than. And that's my fault. I yelled, tears now sliding down my cheek as my heart began to beat wildly against my chest. Have you thought about the fact that maybe if you had stayed at home and carried out your duties as an alpha rather than leaving everything to me, just maybe I could have been able to carry out mine as a Luna? You never would have been able to carry out your duties regardless of my presence. You know why? Because you are barren, Selena, and I am certain it is the curse of the moon goddess on me because you and I are not mates. He spat with such venom in his voice and a glare in his eyes that I had never seen before that I knew our relationship had its own flaws, but he was never this cold to me. He never looked at me with such hatred in his eyes before. Holding on tightly to the necklace around my neck and wondering what had gone wrong, why he had changed? Lucian, we can work things out, remember this necklace? I held it up for him to see. You gave it to me to remind me of our. I have never seen that necklace before, Selena, so don't bother, just drop everything and leave. The papers will be sent to you tonight, sign them without a fuss. Please do it while I am still asking nicely, Selena. He added. My chest felt heavy, like something had been placed on it, and it made it so difficult for me to breathe. How could Lucian do that to me? Years and years of hope and dedication. I dreamt of the day he would return home and show his affection, and this was what I got in return. I gripped my chest tightly as I struggled to breathe. My vision was now blurred by my tears, and just when I thought nothing else could rival the pain and humiliation, taking deep breaths and shoving down the bitterness in my heart, I opened my mouth and forced myself to speak. If I agree to sign the divorce and leave, then I'll walk away with half of the pack's fortune. You greedy bitch. Brinny cursed as she lunged forward to attack me, but Lucian held her back. How dare you ask for what isn't yours? What isn't mine? I scoffed, the pain eating away at me. I worked 10 times harder and made enough sacrifices to deserve half of all of what I built in your absence. You really are crazy and bitter. Lucian responded with an irritated tone, but there was nothing more that he would say that would hurt me more than the pain of his betrayal. When you make up your mind, I'll be waiting in my room. With that said, I turned around, forcing myself to not show how broken I was in front of them, and made my way back to my room. I collapsed against the door as soon as I had slammed the door shut behind me. The urge to break down in tears was overwhelming, so I rushed over to my bed, hoping to cry my eyes out while pressing my face against my pillow. It was the only way to relieve the pain building up inside of me, but as soon as I grabbed the sheets on my bed, I realized I wasn't alone there. Was someone sprawled out on my bed? It was her. It was really her. The woman Lucian had come home with was right there on my bed. I was speechless as I stared at her, unsure of what to say or how to react. She stirred, and when she noticed me, she smiled softly and rose to her feet. Selena, right? She asked with a wide smile as she caressed her belly. Listen, I know this is a bad time and all, but I just wanted to personally apologize for my husband's behavior. After all these years, he shouldn't have broken the news to you like that. Please forgive us, we didn't mean to hurt you. It was just that we couldn't hold back our desire for each other. She paused and smiled at me again. I doubt if you would ever understand what it feels like, but one cannot fight a mate bond, you know. I am so sorry for ruining your marriage, and maybe you and I can still be friends. She stepped forward and stretched out her arms. My name is Cindy, she said, and all I could do was stare at her, wide-eyed in shock. Did she just call Lucian her husband in front of me? Friends. She wanted us to be friends? I scoffed out loud. She was clearly mocking me with the whole mate thing, and I refused to be the bitter wife that would take things too far, so I just ignored her and was about to walk away when she suddenly screamed and collapsed to the ground. Her piercing scream rang out across the mansion, and I turned around and rushed over to her side. Are you ill or dash? The question had barely left my lips when Lucian and Brinny rushed in. He almost knocked me down when he knelt down by her side and cradled her in his arms like a baby. He had never done that for me before. Suddenly, tears streamed down her face as she groaned in pain. Is my baby all right?" She asked him as she clung onto his chest. That I was confused. Why was she asking about her baby? What could be wrong with the child? What happened? Lucian turned to me with a frown on his face, and I just stared back at him dumbfounded because I also had no idea what was going on. "Don't be mad at her, babe," she sobbed. "I was just trying to apologize for hurting her feelings, but she snapped at me and tried to hurt my baby. Her anger must have blinded her." I stared at her in disbelief. What kind of a human being would tell such a lie in the presence of who she was lying against, with real tears rolling down her cheeks? "You witch, I knew you were evil all along, but I just didn't think you would attack her this fast." Brinny turned on me. "No, Alpha Lucian, Luna, Selena didn't do anything." A familiar voice suddenly spoke up, and that was when I noticed that my young maid, who was more like a really close friend, was now in the room with us. She was the one that came into Luna's room without permission and insisted on sleeping on her bed. She added, "Luna Selena would never hurt anyone. She would never do something like this." She would have continued if Lucian had not suddenly kicked her so hard that she was knocked down. "How dare this filthy thing speak up in front of an alpha?" Lucian yelled angrily. "Drag her down to the dungeons and beat her to death so in her next life, she would be reminded of her place." He ordered, and two of his guards stepped forward. That I immediately jumped in front of Rose, who was now bleeding out on the floor. "No one lays a single finger on her," I stated authoritatively, glaring right at Lucian. "How could you even think of hurting an unborn child? How evil can you be, Selena? How much hatred can you have in your heart to be able to do that? All that negative energy is the reason your womb is still blocked," Lucian said harshly to me. Why would he even think I could do that? What did he take me for? I was so hurt that he would think so lowly of me. "I didn't do it. I didn't even touch her. I was about to leave when she fell on her own. Why would you even think that I would be able to do that?" I asked. The woman that caused all this commotion was still sprawled out on the floor, groaning and twisting her body as if she was in pain. "She just fell by herself. I have nothing to do with this. Please believe me." "What?" I raised a brow at Logan. "What are you talking about? If he didn't send it, then who did?" He held my eyes for a second or two before he responded. "I did. Every single gift you received while he was away was sent by me." "What?" "I knew you felt very alone with him gone and not a message from him. I just wanted to make you happy. So I sent those messages and gifts and made it look like they were from Lucian." He explained further, and I just couldn't believe my ears. All these years and it was never Lucian? He never sent me any gifts. It all made sense now, the reason he had said he didn't recognize the necklace. The reason there was no affection in his eyes. Knowing that he forgot you, I knew it would break you, so after waiting for days for his message and there was none, I decided to fill that role, then come back empty-handed to you. Selena, No, wait. I stopped him, standing up sharply and pulling my hand away from his. "You don't have to explain." I immediately took off the necklace as I paced the length of the room anxiously. The truth of what he had just said hit me so hard that I couldn't even listen to him say it anymore. Why would he do that? All manner of thoughts rushed into my head, and I became worried about the reasons behind his intentions. I didn't want to think any deeper into it because it was just something impossible. I always knew Logan cared a little more than the others, but I never thought he would be bold enough to hint at his feelings, especially not when Lucian was back home. Lucian was the alpha and he was the beta. How could a beta love his alpha's Luna? It only meant one thing: death. He was a dear friend to me, one I would always appreciate, but it could never be more than that. He had to stay in that friend zone no matter what. He just had to, if not for his life then for everyone's sake. He doesn't deserve you, Selena. Someone who would hurt you this much simply because of a woman he thinks he feels a mate bond with doesn't deserve you," he said, and I cocked my head sideways to look at him. "And why do you think that? You've spent years of your life trying to achieve whatever you thought was best for this pack. I watched you, Selena, and I have never seen a woman as selfless as you are." He paused and took a deep breath. "I respect you and your position enough to never want to see you get kicked out like some garbage or like someone that they no longer find useful. That was why I defended you with everything I could in that meeting with the council, but one thing I must admit is that I never want to see you unhappy no matter the circumstances." Unsure of what to say, I just listened to him without saying a single word. He took my silence as a sign of agreement and continued, "Inasmuch as I never want you to leave, Selena, if at any point at all, Your stay here turns into torment and all you feel is pain, suffering and sadness, then I would never stop you from leaving. In fact, I would support that decision. Any decision you make at the end of the day, I would always support it because I just want you to be happy. He was wrong to think I wanted to leave. I would admit to being in pain, but that wasn't enough to make me leave because I wasn't staying back for Lucian. I was staying back for something that mattered so much more to me than he ever would. For the one thing I had dedicated a lot of myself to. I am staying for the pack, not for Lucian. I can't bear to see my efforts getting ruined by a childish alpha like him. I responded, and his eyes lit up with some sort of glow that I couldn't comprehend.